Now it's time for us to create the animation blueprint for our character. Animation blueprints are basically visual scripts that are used for creating and controlling the animation for our character. To create an animation blueprint, first let's go to our character folder here. So I got my Michael folder here, and you have the animations folder and the blueprint folder. Let's go to our blueprint folder, right click. Let's go to animation, animation blueprint. And make sure, it's very important, that you select the T-pose skeletal that we have. Remember, the one that you downloaded from Mixamo. So make sure it has that name on there and then skeleton. So this right here, T-pose skeleton, I named mine T-pose. So I'm going to go click that and hit create. And then we could just rename it. So you could just, to rename it, you could always just go ahead and rename it right away once it's been created, or you could press F2 on your keyboard. Let's say you accidentally click off, you could click on it again, press F2, and let's go ahead and name this. I'm gonna call it Michael underscore BP for blueprint, and just press enter. And we have to double click so we could go inside it. All right, and there it is. And just gonna go ahead and maximize it. And we have this output pose here, and you could see we have this is the blueprint that we have made, and we're inside it. And inside it, we have the animation graph, okay? So let's go and create a node here that will allow us to store our animations. So let's go ahead and click and drag around where it says result, click and drag to the left, and then let's go ahead and find a state machine. Just type in STATE, state machine, right there. And let's go ahead and rename this. Click on this node and press F2, and we could call it locomotion. All right, so this is a container that will contain all of our animations in there, our state, okay? So let's go ahead and double click inside it. So now when you double click inside it, you could see what's going on here. You created a blueprint, and then when you double click on the blueprint, it allows you to go inside the animation graph. And then when you click inside the node, the state machine, you are now in here, the locomotion. So just keep that in mind, and you could always go back to each of these. So let's say you want to go back to the animation graph, you could do that. And then you want to go back to the node again, and you could double click inside it, and there it is. Okay, so just make sure you're inside the locomotion, and then you could right click and drag. I'm just gonna go ahead and pan this a little bit to the left, and then we could go ahead and create a state. Click and drag where the arrow is at here. Click and drag, and then let's go ahead and add a state. Click on add state, and we could call this one idle /walk/run, and press enter. In here is where we're going to add our idle animation, our walk animation, and run animation later on. You could scroll your mouse to kind of zoom out. All right, and you could hover your mouse at the edge of the node, and then click, hold, and drag, and then we could add another state. And this time we could go ahead and name it jump up. So what we're gonna do, what's gonna happen is our character is either gonna be idle at the beginning, or it's gonna walk. If you press forward, it's gonna walk, or it's gonna run. If you hold the shift key on your keyboard, you want it to run. So at the beginning, you could either do any of these actions, and then if you want, you could also have it jump up when we press the space bar. So that's why we need to create this here, jump. So jump, and then after that, we have to create another state. Hover our mouse over the edge here, click and drag, and let's go ahead and add another state. This one is gonna be falling idle. Basically, we're creating all these states that are related to our animations here, okay? So falling idle, this is where our falling idle is going to go into. And then we can go ahead and click and drag again. And this time, we're going to, from falling idle to jump down, okay? Oops, sorry. Actually, you have to add state, okay? Add state, and then we have to name it jump down. All right, so remember, we have our character is going to jump up, and then he's going to be up in the air, which is the falling idol. All right, he's just going to stay up in the air, and then he's going to jump down, and after that he's going to go back to either idle, walk, or run. Okay, so let's go ahead and click and drag, hover our mouse over the edge here, and then click and drag and connect it there. All right, now we could go inside these and put in our animation in there. We could go ahead and do the jump up first. Okay, double click inside it, and then you could go to the jump up animation that you have. So this is the one. You can see it. I'm going to click and drag and put it here. Make sure you put in the right animation. Make sure you double check everything. And then you could go ahead and connect this animation pose to the output animation pose result here. There you go. And then we could go back to the locomotion. So we got our jump up there. Now let's go to the falling idol, double click inside it, and find your falling idol. So this is where he's just hanging in the air like that, or as you can see my character there. Just click and drag right here, and then go ahead and click on this little person icon, and then just click right there, click and drag it there. And about this, make sure, click on the falling idol node, and then what we need to do is you have to look at the details, properties here, and you have to turn on loop animation. Turn that on. This is very important because when you hold the space bar to jump, let's say you're holding it, right? And you want to keep him in the air. So that means you have to make sure that when he's up in the air, that this is going to loop, all right? This animation is going to loop, which is very important. Now let's go back to the locomotion and let's go to the jump down, double click inside it. For that one, let's go ahead and click and drag the jump down animation here, and then click and drag it, connect it to the output animation pose. Great. And go to locomotion again. Now, for the idle, walk, and run, if you double click inside it, so we cannot just drag, our idle here and our walk here, and we can't connect all of these together like that, okay? So this is where we're gonna need to create a node, a blend space node that will allow us to combine all those animations together, which we're gonna put it here later and then connect it there, okay? So to create a blend space that will allow us to blend our animations together, our walk, our idle, and run together, we have to go ahead and minimize your blueprint window. So we can just minimize this for now. And then let's go back to our content browser. Let's go back to our blueprint folder here, right? And then we could right click and we could go to our animation, legacy, and blend space 1D. Okay, and once again, make sure that you choose your T-pose skeleton, basically the name. Make sure that you have it correct. So right there. And then go ahead and rename it. I'm going to call it Michael_BS for bullshit. Nope, it's called blend space, guys. BS for blend space. And just press enter. Okay, and once again, we have to double click to go inside it. All right, and we could go ahead and maximize it. And keep in mind right now, look at your tabs. So we have the Michael, I have the blueprint, BP for blueprint. I have the BS for blend space. So you know what? We don't want to, accidentally exit out the blueprint that we have just made here for the locomotion and stuff. So we could just compile it and just save it. You're going to see an error because we don't have the blend space and we don't have the transitions yet. So you will see an error like this, but let's go ahead and save it for now. All right, and then we're going to go fix this error later once we add our blend space. Let's go to our, over here, our blend shape tab, okay? And if you guys go look at the left at the asset details here, the important part that we need to look at is going to be the horizontal axis here. So I want you guys to just go ahead and click on this arrow, and then you're going to see these options. These are just the options that we're going to be messing around with. For the name, we can go ahead and type in speed. This is going to be for the speed of our character, all right? And for the minimum speed, we can just leave it at 0, which is fairly pretty good in my opinion. So at 0 value, we're going to have our character at an idle animation. And then for the maximum axis value here, let's go and set it to 600. At 600, we want our character here to be, when we have this at maximum 600, we want our character to be running, okay? Now, in between 0 and 600 is going to be the walking, which is going to be 300, and we will make our character walk, and by using this graph right here that you see, okay? But we'll deal with that later. For the grid divisions, right now we have 4. So the divisions are basically this. You have 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't think we need this much to be able to create our values, all right? Because we're gonna be dragging our idle, we're gonna be dragging our walk, and we're gonna be dragging our run. So, and we need to snap it on the grid. And you can see all the lines here. We don't need all these lines. So we could just go ahead and set this to grid division of 2. All right, so now we have just this where we could snap our idle animation. And then we have this here where we could snap our walk. And then here where we could snap our run, right? So 2 would be fine. And smoothing time, we just leave it at 0. Later on, we can mess around with this. Basically, this is the seconds between where it's going to transition from idle to walk to run animation. So if I set 0.1 here, that means it's going to take 0.1 second to transition from idle to walking, 0.1 second to transition from walking to run. So right now I'm going to set it to 0. Later on, if we want to go ahead and smooth this out, we could, but I think 0 at the beginning is fine. All right, now, as I mentioned before, looking at our graph here, so we have to drag our animation, our idle, walk, and run, okay? And you could see that there's an X here. This will allow us to point to our animation, so we could see how our animation look like. But you could actually move this X right here, this green X, by holding control left click, hold control, and then actually not left click. You don't have to left click, but if you want to, yeah, you could drag this X by holding control and then hovering your mouse to the left and to the right. Yeah, I'm doing that right now. It shows you here. Hold control to set the preview point. So you could, yeah, I'll show you how this works, but for now we could just put it where it was before right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and drag our idle first. Let's go click and drag. Hold the shift key on your keyboard, go to your idle, hold shift, click and drag it, and snap it right there. Okay, there you go. And if what we have to do is, you could also turn on snap to grid to make it easier to snap. All right, so you don't have to hold shift. All right, let's go ahead and turn that off. So if I go, so that's going to be the idle one. All right, you could also turn off and turn on the animation. So if I press play right here, you could see he look like he's breathing, right? You could also stop it right now if you don't want to see it, if it's slowing down your PC, which is, to me, it is slowing down because I'm recording at the same time. If this is being played, it's kind of slowing, but I'm going to stop it for now. Okay, so we have our first animation, which is the idle. Now let's go ahead and do the walk. So in here, we're going to have the walk. Right here, we have the idle, which is at 0. This is going to be, here we're going to have the walk, which is going to be basically, here is going to be the 300 value. And then here you see 600. Here we're going to have our maximum value, which is going to be the run, the fastest one, okay? So let's go ahead and drag our next one is going to be the walk. Let's put it in the middle. Click and drag it right here. Okay, so you don't have to hold shift. Actually, if you want to make it right in the middle, you could also hold shift and then it just snaps right there in the middle, okay? It just makes it easier. And then you could go to this part right here, which is 600, we want it to run. So you could click here, hold shift, click and drag right here. There you go. All right, now we could go ahead and press play so we can see what we're working with. We press play here. You could see he's breathing. So we could see that the X, the green X, is on the idle. That's why we could see that animation. If you want to see the animation for the walk, you could hold control and then just drag your mouse to, you see how you could go ahead and move this green X to the left or to the right, and you could easily transition from idle to walking to running. Okay, so I could go here. You could see the value at 300 speed. It is walking. You could see at 600 speed, approximately 600, yeah, exactly 600 species running, all right? So just keep these values in mind because we are going to be doing stuff with this later on with our third-person controller, all right? So once that's all done, we could go ahead and save this out. Don't forget to save it by clicking here, click Save This Preset. All right, and we could also just stop it right now because I have to stop it because it's slowing down, really slowing down my PC. I'm going to go turn that off, okay? And then let's go back to our blueprint right here. And so remember in the idle, in our locomotion, in the idle walk run state, we have to drag that blend space. So now we see that our blend space is basically right here. And we have to click and drag it right there, okay? So let's go ahead and drag it inside our idle walk run state. Click, hold and drag it right there. Great. Now we could go ahead and connect this to the output animation pose right there. And then we have to make sure this is a variable. Right click and, right click right here where it says speed. All right, where it says speed, right click and then promote to variable. All right, so that will allow us to set the speed in real time, which is very important. So now, if you see these errors here, now that we have added the animations for our idle walk and run, and you click compile, and then you click compile and hit save. Okay, so right now it's still there because we have to enter a transition. So we have our animations in there and everything, but in order for this to transition, if we go inside the locomotion, go back to the locomotion, right? So that we have our graph right here. So you guys could see, in order for us to transition from idle walk run to jump up, and then to falling idle to jump down to idle walk run, you see how we have an issue with the transition. In order to transition this, we have to go to our transition rules here. All right, so we have to go to each of these transition rules and set our rules for how we're going to go from this node to this node, from this animation to this animation to that animation, so on. All right, so we got to go deal with each of these here, these transition circles, right? So let's go ahead and do the first one, which is going to be this right here, which is idle, from idle walk run to jump up. So let's go inside it to the transition rule. Now, in order for us to transition from idle walk run to jump up, we have to know, if we press the space bar, right, we want our character to jump up, right? So in order to do that, we have to actually create a variable. So go over here on this node, right click and promote to variable. Okay, now for this one, we have to change the name. We have to go ahead and press F2. Okay, to change the name, you could go over here. So you could see all your variables right here. You got your variables. So remember, we already have a speed variable, and we have this variable is basically this right here. So go ahead and click here, and we have to rename it. Press F2 to rename this variable. Let's go ahead and set it to, we could put jumping and then question mark and press enter. So what's going to happen is basically this node is asking, hey, are we pressing the space bar? And if we are pressing the space bar for the character to jump, we want to transition from idle walk run to jumping up. Okay, so this is what this means. Okay, now let's go back to our locomotion here. So we got this done. We got this transition rule done from idle walk run to jump up. Now we have to do this transition right here from jump up to falling idle. Okay, so what we just want to do with this one is we just wanted to, as soon as he jumps up, right, we wanted to go to falling idle where he jumps up and then he's gonna stays up in the air, right? So we wanted to automatically transition to this node right here without any other fancy variable. So to do that, just click on the transition right here and then click on automatic rule based on sequence. Just click on that. All right, great. Now let's go to our, from the falling idle to jump down, to transition from there to the jump down, from him being up in the air to jumping down, we have this transition here, right? So we don't want it to just transition going down right away, okay? We want to make an if statement for this using Boolean. We want it so that if we are not holding the space bar anymore to jump, right, it's going to go and transition to the jump down. That's what we want to happen. So let's go to our transition here, double click inside it, and what we need to do is click and drag our jumping, click, hold and drag right here, okay? And let's go click on get jumping, and then we have to create a not boolean. So we have to go ahead and click, hold and drag here, and then let's search for, just type in NOT. So you're gonna find right here not boolean, click on that, and then we could go ahead and connect this to can enter transition. All right, so what this means is it's going to see if you are holding the space bar, if you're jumping, and if not, if you're not pressing the space bar or holding the space bar, that means if you're not holding it, it's going to transition from falling idle to finally being on the ground, which is jumping down, okay? So this is what this entire node means. And let's go back to locomotion. So we got that from falling idle to jump down. And now from jump down to idle, walk, run, as soon as he gets on the ground, we just wanted to transition to either idle, walk, or run. So we could just go over here and then click on automatic rule based on sequence, turn that on. And then when you're done, just go ahead and click on compile, and you could see that there's no more error, which is very perfect. And click on save, and there you go. All right, so we are done with our animation graph here. Now, in order for us to be able to control our character and control our animations that we added here and our variables that we added here, we got to do some visual scripting, in which we will do in the next video. Because even though we have the animation here, if you save this out and drag your character in your Unreal Engine, if without any visual scripting, if you go ahead and try to make your character move to the left, to the right, jump up, down, hit your space bar, that's not going to work unless you add some visual scripting in here. And we will do all that in the event graph in the next video. Make sure that you guys save your work, save all the tabs here, and save, make sure you save all so you don't have to redo everything here that I showed you. And I'll see you guys in the next video.